So I'm a first-time entrepreneur, and this is the first time I'm thrown at so many interesting problems that a company has to solve. I need to focus on making sure that the company and the people inside of it are on the right path to growth.
For us founders, our company is a journey, and we are growing with organization and changing and adapting, and every new stage in the company is still fascinating, it's still interesting, it's still amazing, and has so many benefits, and it could be the same.
As an entrepreneur, you're never quite happy with your growth. You're never quite happy with where you are. We try to be as unique to the experiences as possible. We try to imagine things that nobody would do. In order to feel that you're making progress and that you're on the right path, it has to tie back to your joy at work, being able to really enjoy what you're doing.
It's interesting when you put people in the same situation, they often think alike. Then you can relate to another person's challenges or wins to reciprocate. We launched Belkins over 6 years ago, and over the course of these 6 years, we grew to be the best appointment setting company worldwide with over 300 people on board. We went through many challenges, and of course, when I meet a fellow founder who can relate, well, that leads to a really great conversation. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Alina Vandenberghe, founder of Chili Piper, a scheduling and lead routing solution. Alina is the first-time founder like I am. She went through exactly what I'm going through right now, and even beyond it when she raised over $54 million in total investment. Today, Alina and I talked about tech. We discuss expectations and reality of 2023. We touch base on layoffs and remote work. And of course, we discuss personal happiness. Excited to share this one with you. Thank you and enjoy the episode. So I wanted to start off with something that I would appreciate if you don't give a very kind of straight answer, like 1-2 phrase, right? But rather like elaborative answer, because it's just kind of to frame the conversation where you're at right now, emotionally, physically, with your mind, all right? So, Alina, how are you? How is Chili Piper doing? And how is 2023 so far?
That's a loaded question. So I'm a first-time entrepreneur, and this is the first time I'm thrown at so many interesting problems that a company has to solve. Before that, I was a builder, a developer, and the intensity of entrepreneurship is in general quite high because you see a lot of problems that you've never seen before, and any solution to these problems has a big impact, especially at our scale. So I've always felt a lot of intensity around my day. However, now that AI is here and it's developing faster than as ever we've ever seen anything else before, I feel quite intellectually challenged to be able to fully grasp the impact that it has on myself as a human, on our business, on our employees, on our ecosystem, on our customers. On the bad side is that if you constantly seek that growth at all costs and you set up your mind and your entire company towards that goal, resetting those expectations to my own brain and our employees and everybody else, it takes some adaptation and you feel a little bit defeated to some extent. However, you get energized by the new metrics and you start looking at all sorts of ways in which you can achieve efficiencies and growth and CAC in a beautiful, more sustainable way. Those are the things that I'm experiencing within the company. And then the ecosystem at large is also as in a similar situation from what I see from the people that I speak are all going through similar things.
I asked specifically how are you and how Chili Piper is, because I know that you're aligned with your work a lot. And I know you spoke a lot about, you and your husband working all the time, being that lifelong entrepreneur and sort of like just being in the zone all the time. So I think that whatever your company is going through in this specifically challenging year, obviously has a huge impact on where you at emotionally and kind of physically, and the level of whatever you're kind of living through right now. Are you aligned with expectations that you had for yourself for this year and for your organization?
On some levels, yes. On some levels, no. The goals that we had for ourselves, the majority of them are on the right trajectory. Some of them better, some of them slightly behind. What I didn't expect to evolve as fast is like I mentioned before, the developments around AI and the speed at which things are progressing there. So that's the part that kind of like got me a little bit more than expected off the course of things.
Okay, can we sit on this for a second? What do you mean by the speed of developing the AI? Obviously, you are in a tech pioneering space, so where do you see the most kind of development happening, and how does this affect Chili Piper and you personally?
The things that are happening right now, and it's really hard to catch up because every day I feel like there's something that I've missed, and some tool that does something different, or some new feature that I might have missed from ChatGPT or something rather. I'm watching closely how the developments that are coming through from Google and from OpenAI and from Stability AI are impacting every single person in our team. And there are so many things that can be replaced in our day-to-day by putting a bot in place or a model in place to do the type of work that we've done in the past. And I'm talking about obviously some basics like writing effective copy or creating an image for a blog post. But it goes deeper than that, because even insights that in the past might have been harder to gather from the data now are easier to get to. A lot of the tasks that we've had before to look at lookalike audiences for our ICPs, or figuring out how to touch our audiences in all the communities or all the places that there's so many things that all of a sudden can be taken over in our day-to-day. So as humans, the skill sets that we can develop now, or the things that we can pay a lot more attention now, differ so much from 6 months ago.
Do you think that the pressure that you feel from the AI and generally from everything that's going on in the space is because everyone expects you guys, to be pioneering this technology, and there's this question like, hey, how do you guys implement AI in your product? And sort of like this whole, concept that you need to be, AI, kind of data science driven these days to have a good product is just the notion, and we don't necessarily need to to be the pioneers, right? Because I receive the same question whenever I talk to someone. They ask, hey, Michael, how did AI disrupted your space? How did AI, how did you incorporate AI in your work? As if everyone expects like, hey, if you're in tech, then you need to be aligned with all that innovation. So do you think that that kind of pressure just artificially created for us to feel stressed from the AI? We don't necessarily need to adopt that, or you want to adopt it? You are curious and you think that, Chili Piper and your work should be connected with AI in this or that way in the very nearest future?
I do not feel the pressure from others. I do not feel necessarily the pressure from my own self to be ahead of these trends. As a previous software engineer, I always paid attention to the things that were happening. So it's just natural for me. But what keeps me so intensely focused on it is the realization of the inevitable impact is going to have in a very short period of time. And us as a society not being fully prepared to understand that impact. Especially as a business owner, the impact that you have is it's a lot greater than the one that you have as on your own. So I'm looking at the inevitability of it and the fact that it comes a lot faster than anybody else has ever predicted it.
You as a tech founder, do you think that you need to have an AI in this or that shape or form in your product for the product to be innovative, for the product to move, to push the needle to the next step? Are you planning on, or have you already integrated some of that AI? Are you planning on? Do you think there's a need for everyone in our Martech space to be AI driven, or not necessarily?
We're treading very carefully on what can be done with AI within this remit. The benefits come a lot more on the insight front on our case, and they come in our ability to deep learn on a lot of other broader insights that could give you some ideas on how you can convert better your customers, on how you can more efficiently create top of the funnel for the kind of clients that do better. So there are parts that can benefit from it, and then there are parts that are super risky and you'd never want to put them through an unproven model. But I can't think of reasons why augmenting some deep learning to some parts of the product are not beneficial. And similarly, the operations the same. And again, I'm not talking about just the things that are being used right now in prompts and in creating content. I'm talking about more things that are coming.
Advanced. Yeah, more advanced stuff, right? I wanted to go back to the question that you already kind of touched base a little about achieving this sustainability that allowed you to not burn cash and being more comfortable with where you guys are. So the question is, are you happy with your current growth, with your current strategy, or with the way you guys are? And I guess yes. If that, then can you elaborate what was done and then what it kind of enabled you to do right now?
I have two very different opinions on that and very different lenses through it. On one side, as an entrepreneur, you're never quite happy with your growth. You're never quite happy with where you are. And it's the driver to the gap that you see of where you can be and where you're at. And the gap in between so for me right now, I wish we would be IPO 200 million and we're 30 million. So there's a big gap to where I think we could be. And that difference is what drives me and what pushes me. Okay, we can be there. These are all sorts of ways when we can solve for it.
Right.
And that's one side of me. And then I have another side of me that says, you can never be happy if you're always focused on what you can have versus appreciating what you have right now. And that's something that I've been always cultivating, but now even more so. And there's a lot of peace of mind that comes from being able to appreciate what you have done so far and being able to sit in the present with the beauty of just being, and that's something that I journal a lot around. Every morning I wake up, I think about the things that I'm grateful for and the things that we've been creating so far. So there's like two-sided Alina, the one that's cultivating happiness in the moment and being happy for what we have achieved, and we have achieved amazing things so far. I would have never dreamed when we started Chili Piper out of nothing that we would get so far. And at the same time, why are we not IPO yet? What can we do better?
You mentioned that you planned for this year not a 3x, but you planned this sufficient growth that to be kind of happy with this kind of hockey stick or whatever, right? And you are not there. I, as a founder, understand you because I'm in a very similar situation. Like we've been doubling, tripling every year. And this year we wanted like say, hey, we're going to call this year strategy as a sustainable growth, not as the uncompromised growth, but a sustainable growth. So let's do 1.6, 1.7, like very like conservative numbers. Let's just do that. And that's it. And we started the year planning those numbers and we're not even there. We kind of grew, but that so I'm kind of, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I feel like I'm not empowered enough. So I could do more, but somehow because of where the market is or because of where just generally we are as buyers are, things have changed. So I'm trying to adopt. So can you tell me your part of the story, like where you at or what your plan was? And you mentioned being this sustainability, right? Part of it. So how does that align with your kind of growth numbers for this kind of year?
That's something that I was touching upon at the beginning of our discussion. I feel that if you've trained for a couple of years to find celebration in that growth number, and that's one of the main drivers of success that you look at in your dashboards and in your metrics, not seeing the same type of success in the growth, specifically in the growth area, is very tricky to navigate because it can be demoralizing, and not only for you as a founder, but also for the rest of the team, because the rest of the team just copies whatever you're feeling.
Right.
And our minds are kind of silly in that they do whatever we tell them to do. And if we tell them for many years to celebrate that number, they're going to do that. And switching perspective to look at efficiency, at cash burn, and looking at, in our case, our ability to help customers in these times because they are going through similar stages as well, still empowers us to see those successes, but it's still a work in progress to every month change and shift our focus to the right efficiency metrics as opposed to the growth at all costs.
Yeah. That's a great answer. When the growth mindset is especially tough on the team because they always live with a certain understanding that when the growth happens, something new unlocks, new people, new products, new benefits, new awards, something always kind of happening because you see the immediate result of your work. Like you pushed hard, you get to a point, great. I think where the tech is and where everyone is right now, you push twice hard to get the same result, and the awards is not typically it here, and it's very demoralizing for a lot of people. Although we as a founder, we know there's no way back, so it's just the way the life is. Like, hey, let's do it, right? But I've seen even on my guys, it's something that, as you said, you need to adapt and you kind of need to change the mindset of that sustainability, optimization, conservativeness in a way, and appreciate the other things, not necessarily just kind of the gross number. Did you guys have to let go people in 2023?
We did.
What was your approach to kind of letting people go and not revenue generated departments and people, or increasing the sort of a benchmark of performance and then underperformers, or closing down some of those R&D things that you did? What was the nature of the layoff that you did?
Jesus, that was like the darkest period of my entrepreneurship. Just thinking about getting back to that period gives me the good GBs. Makes me feel deeply sad. there's no right way to do it. There's no perfect way to do it. We knew that we had to cut the percentage of our workforce to get to a certain number. And we knew because of our roadmap that focuses on certain things that certain departments can't be touched. Like an example of a department that we didn't want to touch was engineering, because we are betting heavily on our roadmap that's focused on PLG. So being able to get to an efficiency number, and I have some flashbacks from having those spreadsheets and deciding who stays and who goes. And it was not at all performance related, because if it was a performance issue, we would have addressed it already. Was a horrible process. It was more of a, okay, in this case, this senior person, can they manage without an extra layer of manager? Can they manage with a shrink headcount? Can they share responsibility that way? It wasn't it wasn't a good method, and I don't think there will ever be a good method to it.
Yeah. How did your team take it? If you can go back to so.
The layoff process is one of the probably the most violent process that people feel, alongside with losing a team member, a family member, or health problems. You lose a home and you lose a job. So it's one of the top reasons why most painful event. And especially in US, it's even worse than in Europe, because the health benefits are attached to your job as well. So not having healthcare is super scary, especially if you're the only family provider and you have children and a spouse. And as a result, there's no way to take it well. There's like no process, no conceivable way to take it well, even though some of our teammates did have a very positive attitude towards the process and so forth. I need to focus on making sure that the company and the people inside of it are on the right path to growth. And even if I might skip my salary for a few years, that only creates more uncertainty longer term, because it's not going to create the kind of numbers that an investor might want to look at and say, oh, that's cost of acquisition is so low and it's so amazing, because I didn't create anything of value from a company's perspective. At the same time, I wanted our team to have the best outcomes no matter what. And that's something that I'm focused on even before anything can happen. So I pay a lot of attention to how can we grow the employees here at Chili Piper to the extent where if ever something happens to us, or if an event like this happens, they have the best chances to getting a job somewhere else. And the way I do that is by helping them create a brand around themselves. So if you see a lot of Chili Piper employees, a lot of them speak a lot on LinkedIn. You'll see them posting a lot and being at many events, speaking at many events, creating content and so forth. And we help them create a brand for themselves so that they have an easier time finding jobs. And secondary, we actually help them with introductions. We create a network for them to be able to find a good home afterwards. And we really rally everybody around it to support them. And those are the kind of actions that I can help with. They might not be the perfect ideal situation where you provide everybody with a job and with a salary, but at least it helps them land softly. And what happened, the thing that warmed my heart is that most employees found a job immediately. And not only that, with a 50% or sometimes in some cases doubling their salary. And it was salary, yes, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. I always say that, we're very, from the day one, we knew that for some people that's, Belkins might be just a place for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? It's not for life. And we wanted to make sure that they're not just taken care of, but also the company has this strong brand and the skill set that you develop working with this organization is so high, then whenever you leave this company, then everyone will say, oh, he actually from Belkins. So, oh, we need to hire that guy, right? Because he knows stuff. He's been through stuff, right? So
exactly.
So that's the best thing, right? And you know that this is not, he or she wasn't just chilling around something. I know that you guys are fully remote. I was wondering where you guys are with your communication.
So back to this idea of skills that you said, that when somebody works at Belkins, they are on the best trajectory to get a job somewhere else. The skill set equation is a big focus of mine. And within that skill set equation, there are many facets of communication and many ways in which good or bad communication can be assessed. There are other components as well. There's orchestration, there's visual communication, there's oral communication, there's communication around goals, strategic KPIs per team, and them orchestrating and so forth. But I believe that everything else comes once teams can be at the same level to hear each other out and understand each other to be able to collaborate on these things.
Do you have certain rules within your organization that's like to promote communication? For example, like you need to be always with your camera on, or sort of like you need to reply on Slack every day or always. So are there anything that you kind of have in place for everyone to align in terms of what kind of communication you can expect in your organization, or it's a full democracy, so everyone can do whatever?
We have some guidelines. We're not super rigid around those guidelines. Those guidelines are based on what we have observed that could be conducive of collaboration and of integration as well. For instance, online, it's a lot harder to feel like you're part of a community, because when you're seeing like little squares on Zoom all the time, you feel quite disconnected. Yeah. And if those Zoom squares are even turned off and you only hear the voice, it gets like one level harder. If you take the audio and you take the video and you only do it in text, then you're really missing the subtleties of emotion. And there's a lot you can do async. There are a lot of decisions you can make async. But when you see an opinion on a document, for instance, you don't see that it may be like super high emotion and that person feels so strongly about that option, but you don't see it because you see only text. Right. And even with voice, sometimes you might not pick on some subtleties. Somebody might feel super intense around something, but their voice sounds very subtle. So you don't know that there's a lot behind it. As a result, in order for us humans to collaborate well, we have to have that full immersion of ourselves, and meeting in person is also a part of it, and it's critical, and we do that as well, even though we're remote.
Oh, how often do you guys meet, and what is kind of meeting you're doing? And again, I'm interested for myself because we've been always kind of a hybrid office in the remote, but we start, hiring more internationally, and people start traveling more. We had a huge office in Kiev, Ukraine, and a lot of people moved. So we still have folks, and we still have office in Kiev, but kind of a lot of people moved to Europe as a result of war, and we kind of start thinking, hey, we need to be more remote, but then we don't have anything in place for the people to meet up. So what did you guys do? Because again, you've been remote for 7 years and you've done that successfully. So I was wondering. I think it comes down to three things to be able to do this effectively at scale. One, and it's something that it's a lot harder to do once you already have a team in place, but hiring for the kind of people that thrive in a remote environment. Not everybody does. Remote work is not for everybody. But for some people, it's the best thing that could ever happen, because they can go and explore the world and see new things and or be with their children at that moment in time and have the proximity. But it's not for everybody. A lot of people burn emotionally through this environment. And you don't really know until you actually do it how you're going to respond. But there's still some ways to assess that in the interview process. Secondary is we have a perk where if you travel and you see a coworker in another city,
We pay for Airbnb and for drinks and for dinners so that people can get together, and we encourage that. And if you have the company pay for it, you're more likely to go and meet colleagues than not.
Yeah.
And we're in 40 countries. So imagine all the places in the world that you can go see. Spain and Portugal and Brazil and so forth. And then we also have meetings in person once a year. And those meetings in person, so far we haven't focused on doing the work, more on connection. And those are very unique experiences that we craft, and sometimes they break the internet, but that's a different story.
So you fly over everyone in one location, or everyone flies them over in one location for like kind of a retreat, right? When you can work and chill. And how do you find the location? So is it like, let's do kind of, summer type or winter type, or?
Wow, we did such it's the diversity of experiences that broaden our personas and us as humans. It's the uniqueness of it. So we try to be as unique to the experiences as possible. We try to imagine things that nobody would do and go with that. So we've gone ashram in India, all of us. We've done the desert in Morocco, chartered some planes there. We do crazy stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. I mentioned, I already asked about the communication. What about cross-functional communication, specifically between departments, or let's say C-level or the head level, that are not necessarily vertical, but cross-functional? And I also heard that it's something that a lot of companies have been struggling with. Do you have a good cross-functional communication?
The alignment in between teams is completely critical at achieving efficiencies, because especially for revenue teams, because you can't care for only one part of your prospect's journey. Everything has to be coherent and everything has to be aligned for the customer. So having the customer as a focus of your KPIs and through the lenses through which you're viewing your operations helps a lot in creating the need for cross-departmental communication, because you think, okay, I want the customer to, in our case, benefit from this use case and this use case and this use case to have their business thrive. Well, how can I align the account managers to talk about that? And how can I align the customer success to talk about that? And so forth. So it's the lenses through which we're looking at the problems to solve and the KPIs that are getting the teams to actually get to collaborate without me having to force that collaboration to happen as a founder.
I know that every company have a certain stages in the development when founders or the company have certain challenges. And when we had something about 150 people on board, I was told by someone from my network that when you guys move to 200, 250, that's going to things start being real interesting, because there will be some problems that you haven't expected before, and things start shaking up in terms of your company culture, the leadership development, some of the other things. Have you had that moment in your sort of like transition, and when that happened, and what was that kind of transition moment for you guys?
Jesus, the biggest thing for me was the realization that people were not talking to me at all the way they used to. In the past, they would tell me there was a problem, here's a problem, here's how we're going to fix it. And they would come to me with all sorts of things. And around 200 employees or so, I felt like I was the scary person in the room where nobody would ever tell me anything. And I didn't understand, because I was still the same person. There was like nothing happening towards me. And I've always been very inviting of errors to happen so that we learn, inviting of transparency around everything that we do so that we can take action together. And this was before the layoff, so I wasn't the big scary person, but the conversation still sounded so strange to me. They didn't sound like the same people as I was used to talking. And you could hear these moments of silence, and I could hear that there was stuff that was not said, and I could not put my finger on it. It was fascinating for me to observe that style of communication. And I'm constantly right now working to undo that. How can I get back to the roots of the problem? How can I get back to understand what's really behind the scene, which really pains someone, to have that trust that they can take action? Because otherwise, if I'm not being told the full story, I will never understand it. So I will never able to take the right action.
Do you think that it's something that you can undo? Because honestly, I have the same problem. And my partner said that that's it. Like, people won't tell you what they really think, or they won't just be open as they were before. So this train is gone. Now we need to adapt to a new reality. So first off, what are you doing to undo this? And then second of all, do you think that you can actually undo that, or this is just the trying and this is just the new reality of having a mid-sized company type founder, CEO?
My first instinct was to think that I can undo it, and I'm still taking action because I still want to create a culture where everybody feels safe to speak up. Safety and trust is like the most important thing. And that's something that I'm going to always work on cultivating. And I've worked on day one because I felt it was very important. And I still feel like trust is like the number one currency that we have these days. It's still a lot more difficult than it has been in the past by the nature of things. The more influence or power that you might acquire through a different influence that you might have, people view you differently, because within interacting with you, they might get to someone that they might need to get to, or they might get something that gets them to have a higher title or more salary. So you're really a decision maker to their well-being. So they're very careful how they thread around you. So I'm having this realization that even though I feel like I'm the same, to them, I'm not at all the same. I'm trying to thread my role carefully and understanding that capacity that I have. And at the same time, being able to get to the bottom of things to truly help, not superficially help.
It's interesting how you say that now you kind of acquired more power and then you can get people through the ranks, etc. I think that you actually cannot, right? Because it's not your call. You have a head department, you have a team leader, a person who is like working them. So I think that, from my guys, I am the last person that would help their career just because I don't know. It's like, it's not my responsibility right now, with regards to what I do on a daily basis. So having just a conversation or a feedback or a mentorship or just kind of helping them for them to be, more successful in what they're doing is my job. But I cannot tell you, hey, now you are that or that, right? Because I don't work with them on that kind of daily basis. And it's interesting. When you say it about having that honest communication and open communication, this is my goal from the first day. And that's why I was never supporting the anonymous questionnaire and anonymous surveys. I always say, hey, if you wanted to fill out the survey, you need to put your name, because if you give your name on the feedback and that feedback is implemented, you're sure that you're, helping the company to grow. This is kind of your company. This is what you're spending your life. Why you need to be anonymous if everything will be fine with you, because this is your constructive feedback, right? You're not kind of just giving some toxic, right? And I had some surveys in my past, oh my God, with people like, hey, Michael, you're the jackass. Who do you think you are, etc. And I never treated that feedback sort of like with regards to my personally, but rather like how that person perceive whatever, right? And everything will be fine. But interesting how my HR team is always battling me on that anonymous feedbacks, saying that there are some people that are not comfortable sharing their name, but they're comfortable sharing the feedback. And I never realized that.
Even though you might not have the power to level up their titles because there's a manager involved and we have a lot of processes and structures in place. So it's not me, it's a process. Yeah. It's a peer feedback. It's the leveling of the skill sets. And it's a clear metric to how you can get there. Right. There's still a level of action that I might be able to take that others in the company might not be able to take. An example, if they have an important ask because they want to amplify maybe something that's near and dear to them, like a campaign in Israel, and I take initiative to promote it on social media or on my own account, then that can change the course of that thing that's important to them. So there are still things that I can still amplify. So I'm threading that part in terms of influence. When it comes to feedback of things that I can implement, it's true that their anonymous type of feedback allows them to give them a better unfiltered grasp of the issue at hand that might not give them if they would associate their name with it. But I have a love-hate relationship with it. On one side, I love that I can get that unfiltered thing and really understand what's in their mind and try to be with it while I understand it. On the other side, many times I feel it's very abstract and I don't fully understand what they're talking about because you never know how people are going to perceive things, no matter how hard you try to make things perfect everywhere. You're never going to be able to do that. You're not superhuman. And you never know what people are sensitive to. You never know what people are sensitive to. So sometimes I read this anonymous and I have no idea. I have no idea what it means. I have no idea where it's coming from. And as a result, I have a hard time addressing it. I don't even know where to start and where to begin because I don't see the same things. So the love-hate relationship comes from the fact that most of the times I don't understand where the things are coming from. I cannot address them and I cannot take action on them. So we do have them, but I don't think that they're as effective as one-on-one feedback is. And I think that the only way I manage to get the full picture these days is by connecting with people on a lot more personal level and fully understanding what's happening in their life and how they're viewing things and how the actions that we're taking are affecting them personally, as opposed to just like from a business perspective.
Yeah. Did you hear people talking or saying Chili Piper is not the same as it was before?
When you have a traumatic event like a layoff in a company, it's very hard to get back to the same because it's not the same. You don't have the same kind of trajectory and the same growth path that you've seen before. It takes a different shift of how you're assessing success and how you're thinking about things. And I was telling you that it's not only on the individual to do that, to start creating their own success path. It's also the founder first retraining themselves to see different ways to pass up success. So yes, we're not going to be the same. At the same time, there are things that people are celebrating in this new era of how we're doing things and how we're scrutinizing like the $7,000 that shouldn't go on hotels. We're going to all sleep on couches and we're going to fix it in different ways. So there's still things that are making the new ways and celebrating that. Then you found metrics of success.
I think that, for us founders, our company is a journey and we are growing with organization and changing and adapting, and every new stage in the company is still fascinating, it's still interesting, it's still amazing and has so many benefits, and it could be the same. Imagine you being the same CEO as you were like 3-5 years ago. It just doesn't make sense, right? It's the worst company to be at if it's 7 years the same. It's plateauing, right? It's like I wanted to kill myself in the head. I have the same people, the same problems, everything the same for like 7 years straight, right? This season of the podcast is about growth beyond sales. And I talk a lot about personal growth, about motivation, etc. But having you on, I wanted to ask you something that a lot of listeners who are working as salespeople, marketing, CSMs, you name it, like having all of those professions, and they wanted to move through the ranks to being executive, to go to the C-level. If I want to move through the ranks in Chili Piper, what kind of personality I should be?
In order to feel that you're making progress and that you're on the right path, it has to tie back to your joy at work, being able to really enjoy what you're doing. And that reflects itself in your ability to have fun with it and being able to have peace of mind at work, and also in the ability to spread that joy to others and help the others with the same type of thing that you're enjoying. So this ability to find joy at work is critical to me, even in the hiring process. And all sorts of things come to that. And that touches on the second one, which is the ability to take ownership and be able to fix things in your path, to be able to grow to the level where you think you can get to. And taking ownership is hard in an organization because you have to move not only yourself, but you have to move your team, you have to move the other teams. But if you're passionate, if you really believe that you can make a change and you can get there, it's a lot easier. It doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
So all of the things are touching back on the fact that it doesn't feel like work.
I think I can relate to so many things that you do, who you are, what you're going through, what your company going through, as if I'm going through a very similar motion. And I want to learn more about you as a person. You talk a lot about Chili Piper, and I appreciate you sharing all of the things that you guys did and what you're doing. It's something that, again, my team can relate to. The thing that you're going through, I can relate to definitely. But a few questions that I'm personally curious about. All right. Are you happy, Alina?
Oh, I love this topic. Very, very excited about this topic of happiness. There are a couple of components of happiness in that you might see happiness, that brief moment where you might see your toddler walking for the first time, or you might see an employee getting promoted and you feel so much joy from it. And those moments of joy can be undershadowed by the other moments, everything else in between that might not necessarily you'd not call happiness. And yet my aim is to have that kind of presence with me at all times that allows me to feel fulfillment in all the small moments, in just being in the present, because I can spend time on stressing about all the things that I've not done in the past, or I can spend countless of hours ruminating on all the things that might come in the future to disrupt my path. However, I can only influence the present moment. I can only take action in the present moment. And in the present moment, if I have any of those emotions that are going to be impeding me to think about the best way to take action, whether it's stress from the past or anxiety about and fear from the future. So peace of mind and joy, or happiness as one would call it, is definitely a focus of mine. I wouldn't say that I've achieved that nirvana state. I don't think that I've yet to have a perfect happiness score, but I'm definitely working on it, and it's a focus that I have, because I don't think I can take action as a mother, as a spouse, as a business owner, as a friend, to the best of my abilities, unless I'm in my best state internally at all times, which is difficult.
That's so true. I think that that's one of the works of a great leader, not necessarily a founder, just a leader in any organization, to work on themselves, to be at their best state, to represent and to support their team at their best ability, right? Because if you're under the weather and under going under certain motion, everyone in the organization is going to feel that, right? And that's not for the benefit to anyone. But then, do you get tired ever?
Of course, I get tired. I am, even though I wish I could be superhuman, I'm not. And sometimes there are so many things that life throws at me that it's hard to take. And those moments of restoration are critical to get back to the right energy level. Unfortunately, when you're in a position of leading a company of a certain size, you have less of the luxury of being able to do that. Because there's always something that's critical that needs your attention, or something that might require you to get on a call of some kind. I'm trying to remove as much as I can the dependency of me being present to solve those bigger problems, and allow the team to solve through these issues through the same levels as I would assess the problem. Mm-hmm. But it's never quite perfect. That's the algorithm in which I'm removed. I do think that those moments of calibration and re-energize are critical, because we're unfortunately limited by our biology, and our biology requires rest.
How do you restore your energy?
I love nature. I really love nature. Gives me a lot of peace. And in the busy New York, I don't always get it, but I manage to escape the weekends. I also do a lot of meditation that allows me to recharge. And the time with my little ones I cherish that so much.
My next question, I think, would be a very great question to follow up on the previous one, but it might sound strange. Do you live a hedonistic way of life?
When I was little, I grew up in a poor neighborhood in Bucharest, in Romania, and oftentimes we had nothing to eat, or we would have no resources to buy crayons or notebooks for school. And when I came to US and I managed to get a salary that was 10 times X what my parents would make in 10 years in a year, I couldn't believe my luck. And I started ordering shoes online. I started being quite attached to shoes online. Then the period of shoes kind of no longer was interesting to me. Then I started becoming interesting in bags, and then in jackets and so forth. I think that period lasted for about a year, and I started accumulating all sorts of things in my closet that were not giving me the joy that I imagined as a kid, that people that can afford anything they can just like click the button and buy the shoes that they like. That it was like such an crazy thing for me to imagine. And as I was exploring that part of me that was thinking that would enjoy the beauty of objects, I realized that had nothing to do with my levels of appreciation of life or with my levels of happiness. And I became a lot more interested in the beauty of things that were interesting to me once that no longer was an issue, once the financial equation was no longer a problem. And in my case, beauty comes from exploring diversity of culture, diversity of thought. Beauty comes from appreciating what nature has created in places where it feels like magic, or in being present with a conversation with someone who's so beautiful in their thoughts that they might enrich mine. So if that's what hedonism is, where you seek the beauty of the moment and beauty of others and the beauty of places, then yes. But if hedonism is attachment towards objects, that's something that, I don't know, fortunately, unfortunately, I no longer feel attachment to. But I'm still happy to have sometimes a nice earring, not these days, but if I have something nice, I still appreciate it, and I appreciate the work that went into it to be produced.
You mentioned already that your husband is French. What did you learn from your French husband? You're Romanian, French culture and French people generally are very
different,
peculiar and interesting in a lot of different habits and the way they think about some philosophical and life in general, right? What are the top things that comes to your mind when I ask the question, what did you learn from your husband?
For the French culture, money is a taboo subject. You don't talk about money. You don't talk about financial success, and any dinner conversation with anyone, you don't talk about how much you make. In Romanian culture, that's like the topic of the most important topic that gets discussed at the dinner conversation. And it was interesting to observe the such a difference of opinion, even about something simple as money. They put a lot more emphasis on culture and the ability to be intellectually enriched on art and music and movies and history, I was recently I was visiting an area in France, and we got to a castle. We got out of the car, and there was a tour happening. And at the tour, everybody was speaking French, so I wasn't quite understanding what they were saying. But there were 10-year-olds that were reciting the kings that were ruled the region in 1600, and there was somebody else who added some battles that were happening God knows when. I was like, oh my gosh, these people, they know so much about their history of their place that I never understood how deep their knowledge lies on these topics. The interest in culture and in philosophy is something that definitely enriched me from the French culture that I've taken with me. And it's very specific to the French for sure.
Now you're Romanian, different culture. In that collision of cultures, what did you teach him? What do you think he learned from you?
Oh, we had an interesting conversation when we started the company. Probably like 1 year or 2 years into it, I realized that for him, achieving financial success was problematic in his mind because it was something that the French culture kind of rejects. Like you don't show any signs of it. So like a fancy car would be a signal that you're financially successful, and that would not be viewed well. So for him, he was really, as our bank account was improving and because we were bootstrapping and we were gaining momentum, I could see that he was taking actions that were sabotaging us. Like he was trying to get out of it, like, but he wasn't like fully aware of it. He had good justification of why we should do certain things. And since I'm coming from a different lens where I tend to double down on the things that are working from a financial standpoint of view, I would want to put more emphasis on those. And seeing that he wasn't was like so peculiar to me. And that's where we had like a huge aha moment. It's like, shit, he's going to sabotage if he's not going to change perspective on this thing. And that was like a big teaching moment for both of us.
Interesting. Where is your home?
That's a tricky question, because if I had it my way, I would live in every big city of the planet for at least a few months to explore it. I've been in Poland and in Warsaw, and I loved it. I want to go to Hong Kong now, and I love exploring places. So it's hard for me to say that home is somewhere.
Mm-hmm. What do you consider to be home?
Well, where the Wi-Fi works well and my children are around.
So this is home. So children, husband, and if they're around, that this is your home. Mm-hmm. That's a great answer. Did your understanding of home change over the years?
I've observed that people are very attached to the places where they're from or where they're at, and they have an attachment that manifests itself as patriotism or just a desire to protect that at all costs. I've never had that. I've never been attached to a place. I've never been attached to an ideal or a concept. So I wouldn't say so. I don't think that I've ever had a concept of what home means. I was always seeking to understand more about other places and what other people call home, not myself.
I always relate home to a place where you either grew up or where you live at the time being, when your stuff is, your apartment, your books, all of that, right? And I remember the time when, war started in Ukraine. I was in Kiev when the rockets were flying the city, right? And when I moved and I started, traveling for year and year with like backpack, with like just my essentials, I realized that home is only where the people that you dear are with you, right? So you can live whatever, you don't care about your apartment, you don't care about your book, anything. It's just, you need to be around your community, the people that are kind of with you. So I kind of relate to your answer, because now you can go and leave whatever, as long as you have your friends, your family, people that you kind of spend your time with near you. And this is the only way that you can be attached to certain place, right? Because if you're the only one in the place with all your stuff, but there's no one around you that you dear and you can engage with and chat with and meet and hang out with, then yes, you can find the new people at that location, but that's not the same. That's not home, right? So 7 years building Chili Piper. How did it change you? How did you change in 7 years? Did you notice in yourself any changes that were not there?
If you had met me 7 years ago, you'd not even recognize me. The reason why I'm saying that is because I was completely introverted, and coming from engineering, I would not have any ability to cherish connection or being able to even form it. So at any event, I would be in the corner, kind of very concerned with even approaching someone, and I would avoid eye contact, like shit, they're coming, and that kind of behavior. And being put in extreme conditions that a company can put you changed me dramatically. I went the opposite way, where I seek large events to connect with people, to create conversations that inspire me, and actually get energy from the interactions, which I never thought it was possible. I thought that you cannot cross the line from an introvert to an extrovert. I wouldn't say that I'm an extrovert. I think my husband for sure is. He really truly loves going to parties and music and festivals. That like freaks me out, that kind of concept. But I still love enriching conversations with people, and I seek them. That's like probably the biggest dramatic change in my case. And obviously the ability to connect a lot more dots than I've been before. I was only focused on engineering, on product. That was like the way I would see everything. And now it forces me to understand so much more about what it takes to drive a business, what it takes to drive brand, what it takes to do organizational excellence and operations that succeed. And as a result, I'm able to connect a lot more dots in between problems that I would not be able to see before. And I'm so grateful for that.
One last question in this block, and I move on. Do you have any professional or personal regrets?
Michael, I'm always working on figuring out how to not have any of them. That's my goal, is to achieve peace of mind.
Did you have any?
Professional regrets? Yes. I wish I would have been a better communicator throughout my life with the people that I've interacted with, to fully express the point of view that I might have had, because I was so afraid to speak. I would not say anything. And as a result, a lot of things I wish I would have said. Because in most cases, when we have an interaction that we regret, probably the intention was the right one. 99.99% the intention is right, but the impact is negative in certain cases. And not having the ability to communicate better my intent or the regret for the impact, or taking ownership for the impact. I wish I did better at that. I wish I was better at it early in my career.
We started with tech, and I wanted to close up with tech, so we can go to full circle. All right. Just a few simple questions. Are there any shifts that are happening in tech right now, this half of the year in 2023, or something that you've noticed last year, this year, specifically in SaaS? Some highlights that...
Oh, Jesus, so many things. One big one is... and it hasn't started quite aggressively as I was expecting it, but probably is going to happen in the next quarters or so. We're going to see a lot more acquisitions, a lot more companies acquiring other companies, because especially in SaaS, because there's a lot of overlap in many categories, and it doesn't make sense to have so many tools. It makes sense to consolidate. A lot of people are consolidating. So it makes sense that companies are consolidating. I was thinking that it would happen, that we would already see it a lot more in Q2. I see some of it, but not as rapidly as I was thinking it might happen. So probably it's going to take place in the next quarters. I get a lot of emails from companies that want to be acquired because they don't see a path to profitability. The other change that's happening that I'm very grateful that's happening is a lot more focus on being intentional about treating customers and not just like a number in the spreadsheet, but providing value to the customers in a way that was not paramount before, and an increased attention to the customer experience overall through that full cycle. And as a result, because the customer becomes paramount, then there's a lot more collaboration that happens within the team. Teams are becoming aligned, and they're working together better. So it promotes a lot more collaborations internally as well, which is beautiful to watch. People have this dystopian view that we have to be self-reliant, but the reality is that humans, we are a lot reliant on others, and we can only thrive if everybody else around us is thriving.
That's so cool. All right. That's a great call up. Alina, thank you so much